Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Thursday, August 15th. Over the next few days, we will continue to have wind spread across the Great Basin in parts of Nevada and Utah today, and then some gusty winds up in Idaho going into Friday and the weekend. But winds really start to strengthen on Saturday, especially across Nevada, where we'll see gusts above 35 or 40 miles per hour with low relative humidity. As far as thunderstorm potential, we will see a wave move through Idaho today with an increase in lightning over central and eastern Idaho and Wyoming. This lightning will be a mix of wet and dry. There will be some moisture with it along with higher humidity, but again, not overall widespread wetting rains. Some lingering thunderstorms in the far north on Friday and drier conditions across the southern half of the Great Basin until Saturday when the next return of monsoon moisture pushes north up into Utah with an increase in wetter showers and thunderstorms. Over the last 24 hours, we did see lightning over eastern Idaho into Wyoming and northern portions of Utah. That was yesterday, and then early morning, we did see some lightning in Oregon that's pushing eastward, and again, this is what will be impacting Idaho today. Rainfall amounts yesterday were not overly impressive. We did see some spots get above 1/10 or 2/10 of an inch of rainfall, but certainly not the heavier wetting rains we've seen recently. Yesterday, we had 12 new fires for just over 4 acres across the Great Basin, and you can see many of this new initial attack was across parts of Utah with a couple new fires up in eastern Nevada and Idaho. Over the last 7 to 14 days, we continue to see that precipitation we saw recently, which was very wet for the time of year, even given mid-August over parts of Utah. However, further north and west, we saw either very dry conditions or any thunderstorms being very spotty with precipitation. The ERC percentile map shows that nicely with the significant decrease in ERCs over the eastern half of the Great Basin with that moisture. We still are seeing ERCs above the 80th or 90th percentile over the western half and northern half of Nevada up into Idaho, with really the Sierra Front being the driest spot or one of the driest spots of the Great Basin, seeing those ERCs above the 90th or 97th percentile. Currently, our ERCs up north in Idaho, where we'll see our thunderstorms today, ERCs are around the 80th or 90th percentile in some spots. Probably will be leveling out here in the coming days. And then along the Sierra Front, those higher ERCs may drop down as we see some cooler temperatures, but for the most part still remaining above normal region-wide. Looking at the satellite picture from this morning, you can see the area of low pressure moving into Oregon, which is responsible for those early morning thunderstorms. This will continue tracking northeast, so bringing that lightning to central Idaho and eastern Idaho into Wyoming, with drier conditions further south. Today, smoke conditions will continue over parts of Idaho, but certainly not as impressive as what we saw last week. Looking at our weather pattern for later today, again, that low continues to track northeast, bringing that moisture to parts of Idaho. So we do have high risk today for parts of the Payette down into the Boise and northern Sawtooth. We might see a little bit more moisture in parts of the Salmon Chalice, but still that lightning threat will be across all of central Idaho today. Otherwise, winds will be gusty still over the Sierra Front into eastern Nevada, so we do have some high risk where those gusty winds line up with the drier conditions. And you can see that on the relative humidity map, a lot of single digits for southern and eastern Nevada, with low teens for western Nevada, where those gusty winds will be picking up. In many areas in eastern Nevada, especially Ely, we have seen recent lightning, so we could see some holdovers pop up with this drier air and breezy winds. Otherwise, up north, just gusty outflow winds with the thunderstorms, and again, a little bit higher humidity today for Idaho, mainly remaining above 25%. Temperatures will remain on the cool side, a little bit below normal for the time of year, with highs in the 80s to low 90s in the valleys across much of the Great Basin and near 106 for Las Vegas. And you can see the thunderstorm potential really getting that increased thunderstorm coverage today for central and eastern Idaho into Wyoming. Looking into Friday, we will see drier conditions pretty much region-wide with just some lingering moisture in the far north for a few isolated storms in central Idaho. Otherwise, very dry conditions for Nevada and Utah, and those winds remain gusty over southern and eastern Nevada, so continued high risk there. You can see a lot more single digits across Nevada into western Utah with those RHs, and even starting to drop up north up into Idaho, but still remaining above 15 to 20%. So those gusty winds for eastern Nevada, again, could stir up more holdovers tomorrow from recent lightning, and if we have any new starts, certainly would carry. Temperatures, again, remain on the cool side. Thunderstorms very limited on Friday with just a few thunderstorms possible up in central Idaho bordering Montana. Saturday is when the winds really start to pick up with this broadening area of low pressure on the west coast, much stronger winds for much of Nevada, so a larger area of high risk. We will start to see that moisture again really quickly return to Utah, so we'll see wetter thunderstorms and showers for Utah with decreasing fire potential. Relative humidity, you can see that stark contrast from the moisture moving into Utah to the drier conditions in Nevada and Idaho. So we will see a more significant drop in humidity for Idaho on Saturday with those RHs and some areas in southwest Idaho in the single digits, otherwise in the teens. Winds, again, much stronger across the Sierra front into central and eastern Nevada. So we'll see more gusts in the 35 to 45 mile per hour range. Again, more gusty outflow winds for Utah with those wetter thunderstorms. We'll have to watch these winds up in Idaho. Right now, they're staying on the moderate side with gusts more in the 20s, but we'll have to see as they could pick up in strength as this drier air moves in. So we could see some of those gustier winds further north. Temperatures still remaining on the cool side for Nevada, but starting to heat up a little bit in Idaho. And you can see that moisture on Saturday really starting to increase across Utah, maybe even clipping eastern Nevada. Here's our 3-day forecast amount of precipitation. All of this in Utah is really occurring on Saturday, and then the more limited moisture, a little bit more spotty up in Idaho and Wyoming will be occurring today. Moving into later in the weekend, this main trough off the west coast remains, keeping breezy or windy conditions with dry conditions across Nevada and then up into Idaho. So we did add high risk for central Idaho for Sunday. That moisture remains in place in the east. Very similar conditions Monday and Tuesday. So we'll have to see if we need any high risk, especially for Monday before this low lifts north on Tuesday for those gusty winds and dry conditions. But you can see, again, the very stark difference in significant fire potential remaining moderate or high with our high risk over western and northern areas and lower as you move into Utah. This moisture may start to track further west on Wednesday as this main low tracks off to the north and this high starts to rebuild. Still somewhat of a trough presence on the west coast, so it will keep Idaho and western and northwest Nevada dry, but this moisture could push into southern and eastern Nevada. 7-day total precipitation, seeing more precipitation for Utah, and these numbers could even go up depending on how the models project. And again, keeping western and northern Nevada up into Idaho dry. The 8 to 14-day outlook taking us from August 12th through the 28th through the end of the month looks fairly representative. Those hotter conditions more in the southwest and southern areas of the Great Basin, and any of that above normal moisture probably confined to the Four Corners area or Utah, keeping western and northern areas near normal for precipitation, which would be dry for the time of year. That concludes the webcast for today. Check back tomorrow for the latest updates.